So and you can repeat it, but the Fed said they still expect to do 2 rate cuts, right, Frank?
Two rate cuts, yeah, because of the I mean, listen, the tariffs are a little bit of a big thing. They're worried about inflation, so they think the tariffs might spark some, spark the inflation a little bit. But yeah, they were talking about two rate cuts, and then a couple more in 2026 and one in 2027. But for right now, they're just talking about two rate cuts for this year.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, rates are still good. I mean, listen, we've been talking about this for several weeks and rates are still kind of where they've been, low sixes, mid sixes, depending upon credit score and whether it's a government loan or not. Government loans are crazy. Government loans are really low right now. Probably, sometimes you pay a point or so you can get into the fives on a government loan. So
So
rates
Frank,
are good. Rates are good.
Frank or Tiffany, how low can you buy a rate down within reason in this market?
You could well, remember you're going to get into a high cost tolerance if you go over 3.3%, but you could typically way I can do it, you could probably spend about three points on paying the points and getting it down. Generally, each point that you pay takes a quarter off the rate. That's general rule, but the margins are so spread out, it just depends. So you can buy it down anywhere probably between a quarter and three-quarters of a percent in rate. But again, remember we have the other thing too, the buy down as well, where you can go 2%, 3% annually. So you could do the buy
And
down or you could buy it down. There's two separate buy
and
downs.
what if a seller pays that still hits the high cost
No,
threshold?
no, that's the buy down where you can take instead of reducing the price of 10 grand on a house, take that 10 grand and use it to do like a 2-1 buy down. So bring it from 6 to 5 to 4. So 4 for the first year, 5 for the second year, and then 6 for the remaining time. So you could do that.
So I think we should, and this is, Tiffany, Frank. I don't know if anybody from Arizona is on,
Yeah,
Rob or his group, but the builders are juicing the demand by manipulating the rates. So, if you're in a market where you're having a little bit of a challenge pushing the inventory, maybe you want to talk to your sellers, about being like a builder, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
builders
do it.
need to move their inventory. It's costing them for that inventory to sit. So what are they doing? They're manipulating the interest rates um, to create demand. So I would just say to everybody, that's probably, a concept that some of you ought to look into. You got a condo in Florida that's not moving. You have a property in Florida that's sitting, and you've lowered the price. Maybe look at changing the financing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the thing with I know one of the couple and Barbara, I don't know if Barbara's on the call today, but um, one of the builders that in Florida, I forget who it was, but they're offering like a 4% interest rate, but fixed for 30 years. So it's not even a buy down. It's just, it's their money and they're offering some crazy 4.5 rates on new construction. So, but to your point is, yeah, instead of reducing the price, just take that money and apply it towards either a 3 or a 2-1 buy down. That's a very good incentive. And you know what? The nice thing is you don't lose out on that commission of, the difference of the purchase price being at 410 or 400. You still
and
make the
and
same
and
amount of money. So
and it's the perfect storm for builders, because builders don't want to cut prices, because if they cut prices, then their comps are going to be lower, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
by providing preferential financing, they're able to hold the line on the prices. And then when interest rates come down, then they don't have to subsidize, and winds up being, a really smart business decision for the builders. And, let's face it, the builders have a lot more sophisticated modeling systems to analyze, the cost benefit.
Mhm.
And, why don't we at least give our clients options in terms of moving properties that aren't just being done by price cuts.
Yeah,
So Frank,
exactly.
it's 11:04. Let's do the mortgage minute here with what's happened the past week. And then I'm going to
Okay,
get
so Yeah, so Feds met. Obviously, they're still in that holding pattern. I think that they're concerned about the tariffs hitting and causing a little bit of recession. They're keeping their target rate between the four and a quarter, 4.5%. But the policymakers are saying that, you know, 2 rate cuts are coming in 2025. The economic outlook called for higher inflation and lower economic growth but we're running sideways. So the rates are still in that, you know, depending upon credit score and program, in that 6.5 range. And the government loans are even lower than that. The FHA and the VA loans are down in the low sixes. If you pay a point or so, you could get into the fives. So right now, bond market's doing okay. It's, you know, it's in that 4.25, 4.20 range. And that's where we've been. We've come down significantly over the highs over the last couple of weeks from that mid range of 4.5, 460 basis points. But right now, again, rates are they're still looking good. Housing, is up 4.2%, I guess, annually. So, you know, it's again, rates are holding steady, and hopefully we'll get a couple more rate cuts this year. And I see people are starting to come off the fence. The New Jersey market, houses are still going much over asking price. The Florida market, things are starting to cool down a little bit. Not seeing multiple offers, but it's still a great time to buy. So let's just keep this train going.
Great. Thanks for the
You're
mortgage
welcome.
minute. I've got a somewhat big announcement here. Next Thursday at 7 o'clock. Anybody like easy? Who likes stuff that's easy? If you're on camera, raise your hand. Right.
We all do.
So this is in my mind like the easiest thing that you could possibly do is next Thursday at 7 o'clock. I'm going to
What time
recreate.
zone?
I'm sorry.
7 o'clock where?
Well, no, it's 7 o'clock on Zoom, right here on the Zoom meeting. I'm going to do a buyer presentation, okay? And it's basically copying what Michael Gopi and his team did down in Florida twice. And every time they did it, I think Michael, I don't know if Michael's on yet, but I think they did 6 or 7 sales from two buyer presentations. And the interesting thing about it was the audience was people that they already knew. So they didn't put ads, they didn't do pay-per-click, they didn't try to get people from the public library to come, which was the traditional thought process. I do see Michael on. Michael, all was the entire audience just people that you and your team knew?
Most of it, we targeted a lot of inner circle, mixed with a lot of the businesses in our plaza and any friends and family that our clients do. So, yeah, I would say majority inner circle clients.
Because it seemed like everybody that came there was hanging around one of Michael's team members that they knew that when they were invited, right? And there were Michael, how many transactions do you think have occurred from those two events?
So we had 4 closings from that event, 4, and we had 1 rental sale. So we had 5 total transactions just from that event.
And we had what, maybe 25, 30 people max in the two events, like 10 to 15 each?
Correct.
But not only, Michael, add to it, because now think what the actual future business that we got from those events, there's probably double what we had on the closing side. So a lot of people in the pipeline right now on from those two events.
Yeah, so this is not today's event, but I'm gonna talk about it for another minute or two, and then we're gonna go on to today's event. And for the latecomers, I'm also gonna bring it up at the end of today's event, talking about it. And the simplicity is ingenious, because what you need to do is just talk to. We all have people that are in our database that we might have showed a house to that haven't purchased yet. And my offer is for you to invite them to come to this event. I will be the host of the event, so it's not like anybody else is going to be influencing or stealing your client. After the event, you just follow up with them and say, hey, were you able to make it? What did you think of the event? Okay. And some of the things that we're going to touch on are things that most consumers have never seen. Okay, like, the compound appreciation. We're going to talk about leverage. We're going to talk about the net worth of homeowners versus renters at different income levels. Okay, because I know a lot of our younger generation, are deferring buying. And I was particularly disturbed, and I mean really upset, when I saw the numbers that the average home buyer was in their 50s. I think it was 54 or 56. Okay, up from 39 4 years ago, and probably early 30s 10 years ago. And that makes a lot of sense. Student debt, increasing costs, you have to save more, but I still don't accept it. I want to influence, and empower people to make decisions so that they can, enjoy more time with their families in a house that they own, instead of deferring it until maybe their kids are in high school, or going to college. I think that's wrong, and I don't think that's a great policy. So, if everybody on the call, let's see, we're up to 54. If everybody invited 3 people and one showed up, we'd have at least 50 people on the event. And I'm going to have our managers reach out and talk to those who haven't shown up here. And worst case, nothing happens. Best case, consumers have a better understanding of buying a piece of real estate. I've done a little bit of the heavy lifting for you, and then you've re-engaged interest. Sound good?
Is that 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.?
7 p.m. Eastern Standard. So it would be 4 Arizona, 4 in Arizona, and 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, thank you.
You got nothing to lose. Worst case, you call and you talk to your sphere, your clients, right? That's a great thing. And if they show up and they get educated, we're going to even talk about kiddie condos. And when parents have kids going to school, that's an opportunity to create an investment property, right? We are, in almost every instance, we're the only pathway to real estate as an investment class to our clients. Because if you have a investment advisor, do they get paid if somebody buys a piece of real estate? Hell no. So there's nobody advocating for the class. And if we consider ourselves to be, what we do, which is, hey, I'm your real estate professional for life, right? I'm not just your real estate professional when you buy or sell your primary residence, am I? I don't think I should be. I think I should be the person that helps you with all your real estate decisions. And I think, your consumers, your clients, your sphere will appreciate at least you giving them the offer to educate them. And I talked a little bit about this at the buyer seminars, but I've seen, clients that were my clients that had bought investment properties for their kids before they went into elementary school. And by the time they went to college, they sold those properties, paid cash for college, and they took the remainder and gave it to them as a down payment to buy a house. How cool is that, right? I mean, I think the instinct that parents have is incredibly powerful. And if you give them a way that they can provide for their kids, that's going to be, you're going to be, there's no comparison with what we do in the industry because nobody's doing it, right? So, you fast forward, and I'm looking at you, John Newman, like, imagine the kids that you help the parents, buy an investment property for the kids, and then the kids go to school debt free because that property, it's appreciated, the mortgage balance has amortized, and they get the tax advantage of capital. Like, there's just so many really cool things that can happen. And maybe you could even put that into like a college savings account, which is that's not my skill set, but maybe there's even a way that you can do that in the future. So anyway, that's my offer to everybody for Thursday next week at 7 p.m. And now on with the scheduled program here. So let me just grab my notes. And I do have too many tabs open, so it's gonna take me a second. So what does the word impact mean to anybody on the call? Just out of curiosity.
Effect.
Effect. Is it positive?
It could
When you
go both
consider-
ways.
Okay. Yeah. Share my screen. And I had fun with this too, because I used it is called Copilot. Has anybody played around with Copilot yet?
I've been using it.
Cool. 'Cause it really almost like cheating. And then you just select and edit. So here is my how are you going to impact those who you have the privilege and opportunity to influence? And I put this through ChatGPT, and it's not, or Copilot, it's not that bad, right? Understanding your influence as a realtor, and this is from the word impact, okay? Talked about, building trust and credibility, educating and consulting, explaining real estate concepts in simple terms, okay? One of the things I think our industry is missing the boat on is there's a lot of things that happen during a real estate transaction that we've solved for a lot of times, and I think a lot of our peers and maybe sometimes we give too much information to our client. We're telling them all the things that we're doing and making the process seem a lot more overwhelming for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe to let them know that we're earning our money. But I don't think that, we need to give a play-by-play on how we're solving all the problems, because it just puts more anxiety in the process. Does that make sense, or does anybody disagree with that? And I want you to just be honest. Do you think that, the client should know all the problems, or you think we should just solve them and make it be a fluid transaction?
I don't think the client should know all the problems.
I agree.
I agree.
Great, but do you think our industry, maybe in the vein of transparency, we're telling, oh my God, we got this huge problem, right? And then we're gonna solve it and try to be a hero. Do you think a lot of our peers do that?
Yes.
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 Right. So that's something maybe you want to just, put in your mind and just say, look, maybe I don't need to tell them every detail until it becomes a problem, right? And
You
at
instill fear.
I'm sorry.
I said it instills fear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's done with good intentions, but I think the outcome is not positive, right?
Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, at our awards in Tucson yesterday, one of the agents is making a deliberate, intentional effort to delegate a lot of the activities that happen along the process with one of their team members. And they said, look, here's what's going to happen. Now that I've launched your listing, or now that we're under contract, my associate, Mary Beth or whoever is going to be handling it from here. And, I'm only going to get involved if there's a problem. So, hopefully, we don't have to talk unless it's about good things, because, if I'm calling you, that means we have something we need to address. So that was setting the expectation that, hey, I don't really want to talk to you, Rob, because that means that we got a problem. So I'm happy talking to whoever you assign to the task. And that flies in direct conflict with a lot of agents. I feel like they need to be involved in every step of the process. Like, I need to go to the appraisal. I need to do the home inspection. It all revolves around me, which is limiting. Next things to have impact on clients is, you know, education, right? And it's not like, you know, talking to them like they're not intelligent. It's just like picking the pieces that are relevant to them and highlighting them, right? Do you think buyers and sellers miss, um, do they miss looking at the whole picture because they're maybe emotional at times, right? Yeah, I really think that they do. Um, you know, understanding market trends, probably one of the biggest skills that people don't realize that is so effective or so necessary in real estate is effective communication. I mean, you can be the smartest agent, you can be the smartest professional, but if you can't, you know, influence and communicate with others, it's going to be really, really difficult, right? You know, because you need to play nice in the sandbox with your peers, right? You have to get them to want to work with you beyond just the math of the equation, right? They have to believe in you. You have to listen and ask the right questions. You have to know how you're going to handle objections. Um, simple, simplify complex real estate concepts for clients. Simplify complex real estate concepts for clients. This is also flying in conflict with, you know, making ourselves significant by explaining the problem that we're solving, right? So you're going to call up the client, you're going to tell them all the details on how the sausage is made and how you're going to be a hero. And I think we need to resist that and do the opposite and simplify the process, right? Simplify the complex, make it simple for the clients. You know, leveraging technology is also important. You know, real life stories. You know, if you talked about, you know, even borrow my story about one of the clients I had that, you know, bought 3 investment properties for his 3 daughters. They all went to pricey universities. The property appreciation and amortization of the mortgages were far in excess of even the most expensive universities. And the remainder gave all of the girls an opportunity to buy their first house by having a down payment. Now, as a parent, who wouldn't be impacted by making a decision that gives your kids the opportunity to buy a property and to graduate university debt free, right? So those are where some of the examples are there. You know, avoiding, this is, now mind you, this is straight from Copilot. Avoiding pitfalls, create long-term relationships, offer additional services. So that wasn't too bad. And then I had another one, which was what do best realtors do compared to their peers? They're trusted advisors. They provide transparent information. They educate and empower. So education's in both of my co-pilot responses. They stay client focused, proactive, anticipatory, solution oriented. What about this one? They maintain relationships even after the transaction. They create referral worthy experiences by going the extra mile. You know, that's really important because, you know, the people that we align with that help us to deliver a seamless experience, all of that winds up being on us because, you know, if you're in a transaction, like especially during the pandemic when everybody was overworked and we had, you know, issues of virtual people, you know, it was not uncommon for people to, like, you know, get their numbers for a refinance or a closing like hours before and say you need to wire this money or bring a check like in an hour. you don't have enough time. But I think if we craft the experience that's a referral worthy experience, then that is a lot more valuable than the commission check, right? Because what's more valuable than one commission check? Anybody know? 3, 4, right? Because if that person refers you and says, what a great job you did, what's the marketing cost on that? 0, right? And all of us that are on this call have people that are raving fans that go out of their way to refer us. Leverage local knowledge. This is all from Copilot. Provide a seamless experience, inspire confidence through professionalism. So was that like pretty cool from just going into Copilot and typing something in? Okay, and you know, ChatGPT does the same type of process. So I would just encourage everybody to figure out, you know, how our job can transcend just selling houses and how we can have more impact on the people that we know, the people that, you know, and it's not just the ones that call us, it's, you know, step up, call some people, say, hey, you know, I wanted to offer you an opportunity to get some new information about the home buying process. If you, your kids, you even want to think about buying property as an investment or an investment class. Okay. So there are a lot more things that we can do to have impact, you know, and, you know, for me, you know, it's incredibly impactful to have one of my clients have 3 kids that, you know, took loans through me, worked with an excellent agent. And, you know, this was 25 years ago, and now the kids bought houses, you know, and, you know, they're way ahead of their peers. I mean, that's amazing to me. That has impact more than just, hey, I listed or I sold your house. Going to shift gears here. And let me just share screen one more time. And does anybody ever, you know, have the saying, like, the more things change, the more they kind of stay the same? Right? You've heard that. So although the technology and the techniques have changed, I think the principles, you know, remain the same. And, you know, the basics of the business, you know, never change. Maybe we're more efficient, but if we follow the basic sales principles daily, you know, we will be better off for it. And sometimes following the basic principles is like if you go to the doctor and they tell you what do you need to do to be healthier, you know, what do you think a doctor says when, you know, after they do your annual physical? They might say things like, anybody want to give me some volunteer?
You gotta
Quiet
lose
group.
10 pounds.
You got to lose 10 pounds, right? You got to eat a little bit better, right?
Exercise.
You might have to go to the gym, right?
Yes.
You know, you might have to stop smoking or drink a little bit less, right? All of these things, these are basic principles, and a lot of them, as a matter of fact, probably all of them are things that we don't really want to do, but we know we need to do, correct? If we want to have more longevity or higher quality of life. But believe it or not, embrace it or reject it. You know, the basics of real estate are, we need to spend time prospecting. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but if you want to have a sustainable growing business, you need to do some prospecting on a daily basis with a schedule. Because if it's not scheduled, it doesn't happen. If you're not doing it first thing, you're bucking the trend. Most experts say if you don't do your prospecting first thing, it doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen sustainably over time. We need to learn how to present better. Okay, we need to learn to have better conversations when we meet and quote unquote present with our clients. And, you know, that might even be, we always talk about, a listing conversation or presenting the facts for a listing, right? But I think buyer presentation or buyer showings um, leave a lot to be desired in our industry right now. Like, does anybody have a specific process that they do that they think is unique to the majority of the industry when you're taking a client to show them a property that they may be interested in and want to share that? Come on, somebody must be good at showing property.
Rob,
Nobody.
Rob, it's Barbara. I don't know how unique this is, but something I've done just to kind of make things, a little more fun is we'll name the houses. And like, we'll call it like the pink house or the alligator house if there's a statue in the front or something. And, it's just kind of fun when we go back over the properties we saw that day. Oh, did you like that alligator house? Or, it's just a fun way to.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes it's good just to give them like a copy of everything you're gonna show them. If you're showing them 3 or 4 houses, make up a brochure for those 3 houses and then, or 4 houses, whatever it is, and have them number it 1 from, 1 to 5, which one they like the best. And this way, at the end of the showings, you'll know, which ones they like the best, and you can modify it the next time you take them out, unless they make an offer.
And Ron, in your market, like you might want to have them write, hey, this one has all impact windows, this one has wind mitigation. Let's take a look at the house. Maybe you should write some notes. Circle, this one has 2 zones, 3 zones, right? Maybe you used to say, hey, it's got a 110 amp service or 200 amp service, right? Go through some of those things, walk them through where others typically don't do those things, right?
Yeah, it's nice to have a clipboard for,
Oh,
for
yeah.
each client, so you can have a clipboard with the listing, a custom listing brochure on it. As you walk through the house with them, you can mention those kind of things, like dual zone air conditioning or something special about the house. They can write it down and they can keep copies of it. This way, at the end of the day, they can review it. If they have any questions, they'll call you. And then the next time you take them out, then you can fine tune their search. So that helps a lot. I don't know how unique it is, but that's something we do.
So, I'm gonna call on Mr. Gary Singer because he left a impact on me the first time I walked into one of his open houses. Do you remember your pitch there, Mr. Singer?
How about welcome to your new home?
Welcome to your next home or your new home. Yep.
Yeah, that's frequently what I say at an open house. And it gives them a warm smile and they feel comfortable that, gee, maybe this is my new home. But just getting back just 2 steps prior to, what I typically do is I find out more specifically what the buyers are looking to, what's their dream home, what is it and then how much money do they want to spend? What's their budget? And then if I see it's totally unrealistic, let's say I show them 3 or 4 houses, I'll set up a couple of houses that have everything that they say they want in a home, but maybe much higher than what they anticipated their budget to be. And when they reject the ones that are within their budget, I bring them to the ones that fulfill their dream and say, but you'll need to pay a little bit more for this one. And maybe they'll, in their own internal rationalization, say, it's worth it. This one has this and so on. And so sometimes I've sold homes by setting it up that way. It's important, I think, to have more than one house to show, but you show the one that you think will be best for them first, because if they say, okay, you're done. You don't have to bother with the others.
And Gary has been successfully in the real estate business for several years. I won't mention how many, Gary, but
Doesn't matter.
when somebody,
My first home sale was in 1969 as an agent. Yeah. I was a school teacher also, but I was,
well, both congratulations. And what I wanted to share was he has the enthusiasm of a rookie when you walk into his open house. Okay, he puts his game face on and he's authentic. It's not phony. It's like, hey, welcome to your new home or your next home. And that must have been 25 years ago, maybe more, Gary. I met you there and I never forgot it.
could have been 50 if you were around at that time. I don't remember.
But it was a long time and it was a memorable one. And
Thank you.
you know, there's an agent that has since passed, Donna Clayton, who when I was recruiting her, I went into her open houses, and she was a master at a different skill in an open house. She would, welcome them, have them sign in, and she would say, "Hey, Rob, look, they always put stuff and usually give a wrong number, right?" She would allow them to walk through, built a little bit of a casual conversation, right? You know, and then after she built rapport, she would pick up the sheet and say, hey, what's the best number for me to reach you at? And they'd say, well, the one I put there, we never answer. That's our home number, right? And then she'd be like, is this the best? And no, that's the email we just give for spam, right? So it was really interesting. And I learned a lot from her by watching her read the body language and build rapport and give people enough space, but not to ignore them when they walk through an open house. And it really is an art. Okay. It's not you jump on them and you ask them all these questions. She gives them the room and for her, an open house with 8 people was a lot better than one with 40 people because you never really got to build that bond when there's so many people walking through.
It's important to engage with the people at that point. In fact, I listed her mother's house, Donna's mother's house many years ago, sold them a house, sold Donna a house before she was a licensed agent, and then sold their house another house. So it was just a sequence of good feeling and it flows. It's kind of take good care of one and you'll have a lot more coming to you.
Right. So and Gary, I've never been through the experience of you showing a house. Like if you're going to show my wife and I 3 houses, but what does that look like when you walk me through, if you don't mind sharing for a moment?
No, I don't. So in most cases, well, firstly, you never walk into the room before the person if you can help it, because then they're only looking at your back. Always give the panoramic view. And as far as the salient features, for example, if I knew because I had interviewed the prospective buyer that they really, really, really wanted to have a hobby room, for example, where the wife can quietly do her sewing, or another room that they get a lot of visitors coming in from Europe or wherever it might be. You emphasize the things that you knew were hot spots for them, because that's an important feature. And they feel good about that. They can check it off on their box of desirability. As far as I never show a house if it's a 2-story house by going first. I take the first floor, but if I know the basement's finished, for example, I never have it such that we have to go down the basement first, because sometimes buyers like to look at the basement, the utility room, and things of that nature. But then you have 3 flights to climb. That's a long trip. So I usually go upstairs first after the first floor, because you're on the first floor, and then down. Down is easy. It's not a problem as far as showings. But you don't want to make it seem like 3 stories you got to climb in order to see the whole house in one fell swoop. As far as we do comparisons, say, gee, they complained in the previous house that this house had too small a kitchen because she loves to cook and entertain and have the family around while she's doing that. Well, it's nice if you get into a kitchen that is spacious and good, and you emphasize, oh, everyone will be standing around and enjoying, and they can help you cook, or you can
Gary,
talk.
do you take notes when they give you feedback, on a pad, or is it mental?
I don't. I remember most of what is important. I absorb a lot of it And you get a feeling for, you know, when you see they're disgusted, look on their face. They don't even have to tell you anything. You know, just by an ugh look that this is not for them. And then I don't push that house, obviously. If they come in and say, ugh, you know, and they look at each other and, ooh, you know, do funny faces, you waste your time and you lose your credibility if you're pushing a house that they've already told you that type of, you know, bathroom is disgusting. They wouldn't have a house like that. You know, why even try to persuade them that that's not such a bad thing for the most part if you have something else that you can sell them, or the next time you get together with them, you'll have something better.
So everybody has their own style and vibe, but for those of you who don't have the memory of Gary, and you know, I even like to do this just for rapport building and say, Gary, do you mind if I take some notes as we go through so that, you know, it'll better help me identify more properties, right? And, you know, can I have permission to just take notes? Because sometimes if you're taking notes, right, people are like, what are you like writing, right? But if you use that as an opportunity, hey, can I have permission to take some notes? They're saying, yes, you're building stronger rapport. Yeah, I just found that to be an interesting, and when on a listing appointment as well, because if you just start writing a bunch of stuff when you're walking through somebody's house, people are looking at you like, well, something wrong? Why are you writing all these notes? You know, so permission-based opportunity is a really good way to strengthen the rapport. You know, learning a little bit more about home construction when you're listing and selling houses is really important. Not just comps, you know,
Can I interject something?
absolutely.
In the years I've been in this business, I always say features tell and benefits sell. You walk out of a home, you make sure you have a cooler in a car with some water and some water or cookies. And you say, how does number one compare to number two, or number two compared to number three? And then you start zeroing in what they're looking for. And when you go around the home, I've always said when you walk and say into the living room, where would you like the couch? This wall or that wall? And whoever speaks up, you know they're the decision maker. So now you're narrowing it down. In the long run, before you finish, you've got yourself a whole information about who you're dealing with, what they're looking for, and it saves you a lot of time. And don't show no more than 4 or 5 properties. One time I had an agent who worked for me. She says, I'm going to show 11 properties. She said, what do you think of that? I said, I think you're an idiot. I said, you can't show more than 4 or 5 and understand what's going on. So these are 2 things that I found to be very effective.
Thank you.
Rob, can I just add one thing too? So
Sure.
in 2016, I had a traumatic brain injury. I have the inability to put short-term to long-term items. So I remember nobody's names. And I know everyone in sales says, you got to remember people's names. That's the way it is. I know nobody's names. It's, hey, bud, how you doing? Great to see you. Good. I carry this with me. And what it does is it records every conversation and transcribes it for me. So I can put the notes back that I forget 10 minutes after I'm outside the house. So 2 things.
Wonderful.
One, if you're making excuses that you need it, you couldn't remember their name, and that's the reason why you couldn't sell to them. It's you. It's not them. It's just don't make excuses, but use things that are at your disposal like this.
What is that device called, if you don't mind sharing?
There's tons of them out there. This one is Ploud, Plaud.
Ploud.
And and then you could just take that, drop it into an AI tool, and say, give me a summary of them. We do a little bit more with it after now. We're actually demonstrating Sunday that we'll record this, put it in, and we'll get full research done on the people while they're in the home. So we'll know their family, Facebook friends, all that stuff while they're there. But the more important fact is building rapport and being with them and using whatever tool you have is the most important thing you have when you're with them. And anything else that's taking or distracting you from it is a distraction, right? And that's not building the eye contact, all the things that we're told to be in sync with the people.
Thank you for sharing that. And then the last part is the close. Okay, and the close is a process, right? It's got to be incredibly frustrating when you know you prospect, you have a great presentation, but you're not strong on the close. And that's called PLAUD, I think you said, Glenn, right? Cloud. So you have to be strong on the close. What does anybody want to share? Like some of the closes that you use that maybe are natural, or maybe they've been taught to you by a mentor that you've had in the past. Come on,
Yeah,
don't
you
be
always
shy.
have to,
Don't be
you
shy here, people.
have to always ask them at the end of each showing. Like Mike Ferry taught us, at the end of each showing, do you want to make an offer on the house? I mean, it's a little outgoing, but that's Mike Ferry's suggestion. But I always ask people, what do you guys think? And I see them writing down on their pads, and they'll tell me yes or no, or maybe it's a possibility. But as far as a close is concerned, I think that you'd have to actually sit with them after the showings and summarize everything to know where they're at. Well, we really like the house with the red front door, or the house with the uh, yellow room, whatever. And then you can actually try to see if they'd be interested in making an offer.
John, what's up?
The other thing I also say is, can you see yourself living here?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if it's not an investment property and it's a primary, they're gonna, it's very emotional purchase. So can you see yourself living here is a good one. In my opinion, it seems to really help them hone in.
Hold on, Beth, I'm gonna mute everybody and then,
I'm the first ones out and you're with me, yeah?
okay, unmute yourself then, thanks.
So to repeat, I asked them, can you see yourself living here? Because it's an emotional purchase when they are going to purchase a home that they intend to occupy. And they're driven by that. And we do, just like somebody said in the past, we do name the houses. We had, one that had a big, huge thing of Hard Rock pins that was shaped like a guitar, and that was the Hard Rock house. And so we do name them. It's easier for them to remember. And then I do say, can you see yourself living here? And if so, what made you like it? And if not, what made you not like it? So we can make sure your feedback to me helps me help you.
Right, so here's a tip, which I think we assume that the consumer knows more than they do. Okay, I think that's just a general overall assumption, and we need to break it down to the practical, right? So if you're a buyer, right, and you're looking to buy a 4-bedroom house in this particular area, in this particular price range, right? And somebody with specificity, that's probably a more serious buyer. One of the things I love to do when I work with your peers is say, hey, I hope you don't mind, Beth, but I did some research, and there's 3 houses on the market right now. There's 9 on average that come on the market in a year. So if we don't like any of these, you're probably going to wait 1 to 2 months before every other option comes on. Just want you to have that in the back of your mind, so you maybe can evaluate whether you want to buy a particular property and maybe change it to what suits your needs, or at least you're empowered to know what to expect. Because if there's 9 that have gone on, between 8 and 12 that have gone on, then there's probably a pretty good expectation that there'll be maybe one every other month for you to choose, and it's not as much abundance as you might have thought, right? So that might manipulate the way that you go about making the decision. But if I don't educate you on that, then I think you're kind of you're a mushroom. You're like in the dark.
The other thing that I think we need to be really careful about when we're showing property is not letting your own opinion get in the way. Even if you're quiet about it, don't let it get in the way, because like I have one that was just put under contract, I don't know, about a week and a half ago. And there is no way on earth I would have purchased this property, but he absolutely loves it. And so, we just, in my opinion, it was a terrible idea. In his opinion, he's on cloud 9. So we can't let our opinions get in the way.
So Beth, you get 5 gold stars for that one, because many of us on this group have been in the business for a number of years, let's just say, and we're looking at it and saying, you know, like for me, you know, I grew up in Edison, New Jersey. I go by there, I'm like, that house is not worth that. That's crazy. Right, but that's the market, right? Because sometimes, you know, being around and seeing things trade a long time, we kind of get a little bit of a skewed image, right? So that was, you get 5 gold stars for that one, because everybody should know that, you know, you're not living in the house. It's not your house. You know, clearly you don't want your client to get ripped off, but you need to be um, unemotionally attached to it, right? You need to be able to help educate them on what's right for their decision.
And they're
Okay.
so excited about it. They referred me another family member who wants to list and purchase.
Yep.
And I would have never bought that house, and there we go.
So I want to talk a little bit more about, you know, particular closing techniques, right? Because I love to go out and close. Robert, you got one?
Well, before we get to that, because I think there's another aspect that we should be mentioning too, is even if you're working with the buyers who are very clear as to what they say that they want, I often find it's really important to talk to them about things not necessarily related to a specific house, but more to get a feeling of what it is about a house that would make them feel like this is the right place for them. I had a client, you know, one time tell me this is exactly what we want in the town that we want to be in. And I showed them that house and they said, yeah, this is what we want. And we started through the process and everything. And I happened to go to a broker open house in a house that was the exact opposite end of the spectrum from the house they said they wanted. And I called them up and I said, look, you know, before we go much further, why don't you just take a look at this other house? And they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it, but finally they agreed to do it. They were in the house for like 2 minutes and he turned to me and said, I could be very happy here. And they've been living in that house now for 15 years. So I think that, you know, we need to look even past what they say they absolutely want, because a lot of times they don't really know what they want. They think they know what they want. And in terms of being lifetime clients, we want to make sure that they're really happy with the house that they decide to buy. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to talk briefly about the close, which is like we all need to have, you know, a process that we're comfortable where the close is the natural next step to a conversation, presentation well done, right? It needs to flow there, right? Some of my favorites are, you know, when would you like the first open house to be? Or, you know, when do you see yourself, you know, moving into your new home, right? And then kind of function backwards to that to get to the close. You know, of these 3 pricing strategies, which one appeals to you the most? When you ask questions like that, right? If I say, you know, I educate you on, you know, auction, market, and lottery pricing, right? When you put a home on, I show you how they perform, and I say, hey Beth, which one of these, you know, do you feel more comfortable with, right? And as soon as you answer that question, I personally have never had somebody say, well, you know, I really think that pricing is a little bit below the market to get it sold in under 30 days at a premium to the ask price is the way that I want to go. But I'm really not sure if it's with you. I've never had that myself, right? Because it's just a natural flow. You know, hey, you know, when do you think the painter can be here to touch up the powder room from the water stain? When do you want to have that first open house? Those are like, you know, trial closes that they feel comfortable with me. It's the natural next step. It's not a salesy, gimmicky thing, right? It's like we had a great conversation. At some point, we need to go towards a close, right? Yeah, I can't tell you how many times, you know, your peers have said, hey, Rob, you know, we have an opportunity to go here. You know, should we be first or last? You know, they say they're interviewing 3 people. You know, my answer is always, I want to go first because there is no second opportunity if I do well. Okay, does anybody prefer to go last? Mr. Singer, do you ever get somebody saying, hey, we're interviewing 3 people, where do you want to go?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Forgive me.
So if somebody says, hey, Gary, we see your signs everywhere, we're going to be interviewing 3 agents, what would you like to come first, or would you like to wait until I'm done interviewing?
First, always first.
Right, because then there's usually not a chance for the second one to get in, right?
Absolutely. I
So
love
anyway, that's my feel. We didn't plan this in advance, FYI, but I just think that a lot of times somebody says we're going to interview 3 people, and we take them literally. We think, all right, well, I want to go third,
they
right?
never, yeah, they never get to 2 or 3 if I prepare myself properly and everything. And we bond nicely. Little things make a big difference. I'll
Yeah,
ask.
and
I'll
and and
ask.
and, it, and it's Gary. It's the preparation, right? It's you're doing the right thing, and you have confidence because you know you're the right choice, right? It's the natural progression is for the next step is this, right? So we move on. So if you're somebody who they say they're interviewing 3 people, nobody has an absolute answer, but I really feel very, very passionately strong with what Gary said that, and every time I've been there. I'm always grateful that I went first because a lot of times number 2 never gets to go.
Exactly.
So
And
I want to go through. I know some people talked about Mike Ferry, and this is probably 70% Mike Ferry. I'm going to just put this up there really quickly, and then I'm going to recap what we're doing on Thursday for the latecomers today. So 10 steps to becoming a consistently productive agent. Probably 2/3 or 70% of this is, influenced by Mike Ferry. Have a strong production-based business plan with structure and accountability, which is reviewed weekly. Okay. That means that you're intentional about, prospecting and producing. You generally have to prospect first thing because if you don't, it virtually never happens. Work and build your database. If you add 2 people a month or 2 people a week and you work on doing something, you're way ahead of most of your peers. You'd be shocked at how many people don't effectively run a database. Develop 2 to 3 additional types of prospecting for your database. One of them I just gave you. Invite them to, the buyer consultation that I'm going to do for everybody. Even if they own a house and they don't have any intention of buying, hey, I know your kids are in college. Maybe you want to get a little bit of an education on what's going on so that you can help your kids when they move out of the house. Number 4, this is huge. Be a little bit more aggressive on your lead follow-up. Okay, nobody wants a passive agent, right? If somebody says, hey, you're pretty aggressive, say, hey, isn't that what you want when you're working with an agent so they get you the result you want? Pre-qualify every prospect, no exceptions. Not just pre-qualify them financially, pre-qualify their motivation, make sure that they're the right fit for you, right? Pre-qualifying a prospect might be, turning away somebody that wants to not disclose things. That's a shady seller, right? Nobody wants that because that you're playing with fire. You're probably going to get burnt. Strengthen your listing preparation and conversation, right? I don't like the word presentation. It just seems like it's, not natural, but your preparation for the listing so that, you're so well prepared. And, if you've gotten if you've won the business, I'm going to be rude and say, shut up and move on. Don't insist on showing all the stuff that you did. Because a lot of times I'll work with your peers. We'll come up with like a great book of collateral stuff, but we never need to open it up because we've closed on the business. Strengthen your showing preparation and process by saying, hey, I just want to let you know that there's only 12 of these that come on every year. Just wanted to, I hope you don't mind, I did some research for you in advance because I don't think many of our peers are educating them on, if I don't like the set of homes right now, what's the prospect for ones coming on in the future? I love objections, and literally I love objections because it gives me the ability to shine, right? Somebody says, hey, we're in no hurry. I love that. I'm not going to tell you my answer now, but we can go over that another time with objection handling scripts and dialogues. Improve your closing skills. And the last one is probably, with all that's going on, it's probably one of the most important. Have high standards for service, pricing, and commission, right? So if your service levels are high, you get stuff priced right, then you can command the commission that you deserve, okay? And that's all goes to having a higher standard. In the last minute or two, I'm going to talk about this opportunity where I'm going to do the work for you, give you an additional prospecting opportunity. We'll send you more communication. I'll probably get that out to everybody today or tomorrow, so that you can share it with your clients or your people in your database. But my recommendation would be not to send it out via email, to look through your database, the people you showed homes to, and personally invite them to, hey, we're having a home buyer presentation or opportunity. I thought this would be helpful for you. It's being presented by our CEO. It's on Zoom, no pressure. If you go on there and you learn one or two things, I think it would be valuable for you, right? And the GoPy team has 4 or 5 sales from doing 2 of these in person. 0 money spent on marketing. It's all the people that we know or that are in our database. And gives you the opportunity to connect with people, invite them to something of value, and then you follow up with them. Okay. And I'm challenging everybody to zone in on 3 people, encourage them to attend the event. Okay. I'm going to do a tremendous amount of preparation to make it, not specific to any state. I'm going to make it particular to just the attributes and benefits of buying a piece of real estate, whether it's for investment or, you're renting, you're trading up, whatever you're doing. Okay.
How long
Can I
will
share
it,
something with you?
how long is it?
1 hour.
Okay, great.
Hey, Rob, can I share one thing about being aggressive for following up?
Yep.
Okay, I went for a listing and after that, he said, Carmen, we're ready to sign the agreement. And I asked him, you have interviewed 3 people. I was the first agent to be there. And I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you. What the thing make the choice to choose me? And you already interviewed 3 people. And he said, because when you left, you called me back. I said, have any question, Mr. Patel, the second day you called me, are you actually ready to make a decision? So you follow up with me 2-3 times. The other agent, I did not hear from them for 2-3 days. So definitely be first and be aggressive with your follow-up.
Yeah. I mean, Carmen, thank you for sharing that. And I know you do some prospecting that a lot of your peers don't do, and you have to follow up.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from my own experience, like if there's something I'm interested in, I always get the call back at an inopportune time, right? I'm like, hey, can you call me back in an hour? And then in an hour, I'm still on the phone, right? And I appreciate the fact that they pursue and that they follow up, that they're not just saying, oh, Rob's not interested, he's blowing me off, right? Those could be some big opportunities that you have. So look, I thank all of you who made a contribution to this, and you have some of the best peers that you can lean into to getting information. Glenn Baker, Karma, Beth, Gary, Robert Garber. I mean, these are amazing people that are giving you nuggets that are going to build your confidence and give you the ability to serve a little bit better. So
Thank you.
Thursday at 7, look for the communication going out. And I really look forward to having an impact and helping you, get a few people off the fence and, make some money by helping some other people. All right.
Sure.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.